In the summer of 2002, Roman police arrested a man for theft. The stolen goods, coins from the bottom of the Trevi Fountain. Coins that, under Italian law, belonged to no one. He'd been collecting them every single morning for 34 years. Not at night, not in secret. At dawn in one of the most photographed places on Earth, while the police watched. Because you can't arrest a man for stealing money that has no owner. Until the day Rome decided it did. And if you've ever thrown a coin into water, some of that money was yours. This is the story of the money we throw away to feel lucky. The man who lived off it. The city that went to war over it. And the place your wish actually ends up. Because it's not the bottom of the fountain. To understand a crime with no victim, you need to meet the criminal. Rome, 1968. A teenager named Roberto Cercelletta is unemployed, barely out of school and out of options. The city around him is full of money he will never touch, except in one place, where people throw it away on purpose. Every morning before sunrise, he walks to the Trevi Fountain. The city is asleep. The water is freezing. He steps in. His tools, a rake and a long magnet shaped like a sword. Romans would later name him after it, D'Artagnan, like the musketeer. And then he simply sweeps. Because scattered across the bottom of that fountain is yesterday's luck. Thousands and thousands of coin. On a good morning, 15 minutes of work brings him more than $1,000. Tax-free. Think about that. In 15 minutes, an unemployed man in wet trousers out-earns almost every lawyer in Rome. But here's the thing. He wasn't hiding. The police knew. The shopkeepers knew. The street sweepers waved good morning. He did this in the middle of Rome's most famous square for 34 years. And he wasn't even alone. Over the years, others tried the same trade. Freelance coin fishers working Rome's smaller fountains with magnets on sticks. But the Trevi belonged to D'Artagnan. So why did nobody stop any of them? Because of a beautiful hole in the law. When you throw a coin into a fountain, what exactly are you doing? You're not paying anyone. You're not donating to anyone. Legally speaking, you're abandoning your property. And abandoned property belonged to no one. Which means picking it up wasn't stealing. You cannot rob a victim who doesn't exist. D'Artagnan hadn't found a loophole in the fountain. He'd found a loophole in ownership itself. So what changed? Two things. The money and the shame. By the early 2000s, tourism was exploding, and the coins weren't pocket change anymore. They were adding up to more than €1 million a year, and a pile of money that big doesn't stay ownerless for long. Money attracts claims the way water attracts wishes. In 2001, the city made a decision. The coins would be swept up officially and given to charity. Suddenly, the fountain's money had a destination, which meant for the first time in 30 years, taking it had a victim. In 2002, hidden cameras went up around the fountain, watching the water at night. And there he was. Same man, same rake, same 15 minutes. That summer, police moved in, and Rome's most tolerated thief became, officially, a thief. Except the charges wouldn't stick. He'd be detained, fined, released, and the next week he'd be back in the water. Because the courts had the same problem the police had always had. How do you punish a theft the law spent 30 years insisting wasn't one? The city had to invent the crime almost from scratch. New rules, new fines, written more or less for one man. D'Artagnan did not go quietly. In July 2002, in front of cameras and crowds, he climbed onto one of the fountain's winged marble horses, pulled out a knife, and cut himself, cursing the mayor for taking away, in his words, his way of making a living. The photo went around the world. The man who robbed the Trevi Fountain made the front page of the New York Times. He kept coming back for years, collecting fines the way he used to collect coins. The city had taken the only job he'd ever invented for himself. He died in December 2013. He was 62. To the very end, he never accepted that what he did was stealing. And honestly, for 34 years, the law had agreed with him. So, if the coins don't belong to D'Artagnan, who do they belong to? Since 2001, every coin swept out of the Trevi Fountain goes to a Catholic charity called Caritas. It funds shelters, soup kitchens, and a supermarket where Rome's poorest families shop for free. And here's the part I love. To collect that money, city workers now wade into the fountain at dawn with brooms and suction hoses, while guards watch the water at night. In other words, the city now does, officially, exactly what D'Artagnan did illegally. Same dawn, same freezing water, better equipment. The coins get dried, sorted, and counted in what might be the strangest counting room in Europe. Because people don't just throw euros. Yen, pesos, dinars, coins from countries that no longer exist. The wishes arrive from everywhere, and some of them can't even be spent. Now run the numbers. About €1.5 million a year. 4,000 euros. Every single day. Those tiny wishes add up to 15% of the charity's entire budget. So your spare change, thrown in the water for luck, literally feeds people. The wish comes true, just not for the person who made it. Which leaves an even weirder question. Why do we do this at all? Why do millions of otherwise intelligent people throw money into water? You know, it doesn't work. There is no wish processing department under the fountain. And yet, standing at the edge, coin in hand, not throwing it feels wrong. Psychologists actually have a name for this: the illusion of control. Rituals that make us feel in control of things we can't control. And a coin is the perfect ritual. It costs almost nothing, so the deal is irresistible. €1 for 1 second of feeling like the universe is listening. It's not even really about the money. The Trevi's cleaners have found glasses, cameras, religious medals, even dentures. People throw in whatever they're holding, because the ritual isn't the coin. The ritual is giving something up. This deal is ancient. 2,000 years before you were born, Romans were dropping coins and offerings into springs and sacred wells. Payments to the gods, for health, for love, for revenge. Archaeologists are still pulling them out. Different empire, same transaction. The Romans even had a phrase for it: do ut des. I give, so that you may give. A coin in the water was never just a wish. It was a contract with an invisible counterparty. 2,000 years later, we're still signing it. Even the modern Trevi ritual was manufactured. A Hollywood movie from 1954, 3 coins in the fountain. Spread the legend that 1 coin over your left shoulder guarantees your return to Rome. The full legend goes further. A second coin brings you love. A third brings you marriage. Notice the pricing structure. The bigger the wish, the higher the fee. Even superstition understands upselling. A marketing line from a 70-year-old film now produces €4,000 a day. We didn't inherit the wish. We inherited the bill. And Trevi is just the most famous cash register. Every fountain on earth runs the same quiet economy. Shopping malls fish out thousands a year. One of America's biggest malls reportedly pulls around $24,000 out of its fountains and gives it to local charities. Others quietly keep it for maintenance. Theme parks vacuum their lagoons. Airports sweep their ponds. Somewhere in every city, it's somebody's actual job to scoop up human hope with a net. And wherever that pile grows large enough, sooner or later, somebody in an office looks at it and asks the D'Artagnan question: why not us? Which is exactly what happened next. In Rome, again, January 2019, the city government announces a decision. Starting April 1st, the Trevi coins will no longer go to the charity. They will go to the city budget for maintaining cultural assets. The same city that arrested a poor man for taking coins that belonged to no one had now decided to take them itself. The backlash was instant. Newspapers, the church, the public, all asking the same question. The poorest man in Rome spent 34 years taking coins that belonged to nobody, and we called him a thief. City Hall spent 1 meeting deciding to take them from the poor, and called it policy. So, which one was the thief? Rome answered within days. The mayor backed down. The coins would stay with the charity. And then Rome went 1 step further. It handed over the coins from every other fountain too. The fight over the wishing money ended with the poor getting more of it. It might be the only budget war in history won by people who weren't even in the room. And somewhere you'd like to think a man with a sword-shaped magnet was smiling. Then, 1 year later, we all found out how real this economy actually is. 2020, the pandemic. Rome empties. No tourists means no wishes. No wishes means no coins. Fountain's income collapsed overnight. And with it, a chunk of the charity's budget for feeding the poor. Think about that. Real families lost real meals because strangers stopped making imaginary deals with the universe. Hope, it turns out, has recessions too. One last thing, because this story doesn't actually end in Rome. We never stopped throwing coins into water. We just renamed the fountains. Lottery tickets, slot machines, lucky charms, lucky apps. The global business of selling hope runs on the exact same deal D'Artagnan was scooping out of the water at dawn, a small price for a second of believing. But here's what makes the fountain different from every casino on earth. At the fountain, losing IS the product. Nobody expects the coin back. You pay €1 to believe for 1 second that somebody up there is listening. It's the most honest bet ever invented. And thanks to a rake, a magnet, and a 30-year fight over who owns a wish, it might also be the only one where the house is a soup kitchen. This file is closed. The cabinet is full. And the next one is already on the desk.